Good afternoon. As I've told you before, earlier this year, we just continued on with the same pop that we started last year. We again were tracking juniors in Algebra 2 courses that were going to be taking the ACT later on. In particular, we were focusing on junior minority students. At Collins High School, the minority population in mathematics has not always excelled. And because of that, that's where we decided to establish our focus. We began this year looking at data from last year. Our current juniors all took a practice ACT in March of 2014. So we started out this year checking that data, and we saw that we had 16 out of a total of 64. That's the first blue mark up there in March. 16 out of a total of 64 minority juniors that had met that math benchmark. That was something that we were excited about, because whenever we checked their progress on the plan test from the sophomore year and on the Explore test, that number was lower than that. So we really felt like we had some momentum. We again assessed the students on the ACT, on a practice ACT in September, and a lot of the mindset of the students was, okay, we know that this is a practice test, and so they didn't necessarily take it as seriously as we thought they would have. At least that's what we were prescribing, the fact that only 7 out of those 64 students, out of those 64 minority juniors, were meeting their math benchmark. So we immediately went to work in September. And you see the actions there were a lot of different meetings that occurred. There were a lot of different conversations that occurred with students, small group conversations, and goal-setting conversations that continued into October and November. Additionally, our math department switched over to a standards-based grading approach, and we really saw some growth in our students' abilities to knock out those common formative assessments based upon the standards that they were being assessed on. You see the green indicates their growth over time in knocking out their assessments. But then if you look in January, again you see that growth on common formative assessments still did not translate into success on the practice ACT. But it did go up to, I think it was 17 students. It's right there at the same as where it was a year prior. We were encouraged by that growth, even though it only got us right back to where we were. But we really felt like, okay, students are starting to get it. The reason that we felt they were starting to get it was the continued growth on the common formative assessments. Also, the students would tell us in those one-on-one goal-setting conversations, on the practice test I didn't really try. So, we get to March. We take the test on March the 4th. There's not a whole lot of actions in March. But we take that test on March the 4th, and on game day, those minority students, the success that they were having on common formatives did not transfer into success on the ACT. We again had a very small number of 11 students, 11 out of that 64 minorities, that actually met the benchmark. So, when I look at this data, again, it's a punch in the gut. But what gives me hope and gives me a real belief that things are going to be better is the data that I did not track up here. And that is the average ACT math score for our minorities is higher than it's ever been. While our students did not necessarily get to benchmark, they got closer to benchmark. We had several that were 1 point or 2 points away from benchmark. And then this is the other part that gives me hope, is we started tracking this year's seniors, the ones that we spent all last year tracking. We had, I believe it was 16 students last year at this time, 16 current seniors that were juniors last year that had met that benchmark. And we told you all that there were 12 more that were 1 or 2 points away. So that would have given us 28 if those 1 or 2 points away got over the hump. That number is now at 39 of those minority students that made it over that benchmark. So again, I just truly believe that if you establish that expectation and you track it on a regular basis, in the end, you get there. That's my pop.